You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe White.
Welcome to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. In the studio with me today is Dr. Joe Venosa from Salisbury. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jim Atkins from Mardella.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Go back to school so I can get a title.
Well, yeah. I tell you what, I've been to some of Joe's lectures and pretty good.
Are they?
So, yeah.
You stayed awake?
Good as
I
in
was awake the
terrible.
whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Salisbury City Council had their meeting Monday, September 9th.
They did.
And we're going to bring in Kevin Lindsay later.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about closed primaries and open primaries and maybe baseball too.
Yeah.
But before we get there, there was some other business at this city council meeting.
Well, speaking of closed primaries and closed things, let's talk about closed sessions because what happened yesterday was very interesting. So typically the council goes into closed session, if they have to, before the legislative session, and then maybe they go to a work session. Usually they're ready by 6.
Okay.
Actually, sometimes they're ready about 10, 15 minutes prior. The doors open, the community can come in. Well, they didn't open those doors until about 6:35.
Okay.
And there were a lot of people talked literally when the doors opened and afterward about what occurred. And by several accounts, there was a lot of tensions, a lot of back and forth about some of the big debates that they're having right now.
Well, I thought it was odd too. There was only 3 council members there.
Yes.
Right?
So I can't explain Council Member Gregory's absence. That's not a new thing.
She wasn't at the last one either.
Yeah, she's not around much, it seems. But what I was told by several people was that Council Member Dowdy left.
Okay.
Walked out.
He was there during the closed
session at some point. Allegedly, got upset, left.
Okay.
And then Vice President Angela Blake had to chair the rest of the meeting, which is interesting because with only 3 sitting members, although they had a quorum, they actually couldn't vote on the second reading for several resolutions.
Well, I do. What I want to do, I want to bring in Kevin, and I want to talk to him a little bit, and then circle back.
Yeah.
And talk about some of the business they actually were able to
Absolutely.
attend to.
Yeah.
We're also going to talk baseball.
All right.
Do you play baseball over in Mardella?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did. Baseball, softball, yeah.
So, one of the interesting things is Kevin Lindsay is very active in the community with youth sports. That's something that's very important to myself as well. They're running a baseball program over at Billie Jean Jackson right in Salisbury. And I want to ask him some more questions. And I'd love to have you come back on and see what you think about what he had to say.
Okay, good deal.
All right. So stay with us. When we come back, we're going to bring in Kevin Lindsay, talk primaries and baseball. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. The City Council just had their meeting this past Monday. We want to give you some updates, and we want to talk a little baseball. And in the studio with me is Mr. Kevin Lindsay from Salisbury.
How you doing?
Dr. Joe Venosa, thanks for sticking around.
Sure.
So before we get to baseball,
Okay.
we got to talk about city politics. And there's this idea that there's gonna be a closed primary for the next city elections, which are in 2027. Mm-hmm. You've posted some information, and I want to find out a little bit more about just what you're hearing.
So I have a contact that stated that the city council, which they ultimately have control over, wants to change the charter to a primary. So in the spirit of things for the Democrats, it's a good move, right? So they don't want what happened with Randy to happen again. Mm-hmm. So
when the vote got split.
The vote got split. So they want to go in with one Democrat, one Republican. When I reached out to Mitchell for Mayor, John Michael Mitchell, I wanted to discuss with him, do we want to announce that now? Because the way we feel is with this information getting leaked out, it's going to be like the old switcheroo again. Remember what happened last election where they switched Megan and Jack out? I think that was always in the plan, but they waited last minute. With this, I'm pretty sure if City Council wants to change that, it's got to be public information and things. But I think it'll be last minute, and they're going to vote it through. Right? Here's a few concerns. Number one, I don't think it's genuine. I really think the Democratic Party locally still hasn't addressed what happened to Joe Michael in his election, with everything from leaving him off the flyer, actually questioning where he lived. A little bit of discrimination, not a little bit. I don't know if it was on purpose, but it appeared that way. Like they didn't. The only African American candidate they were just trying to get rid of.
And at one point was questioned whether or not he was a legitimate candidate.
And stated, you could read it, was not a legitimate candidate.
Yes, wasn't a legitimate candidate. Secondly, we barely can get 3,000 people to come out for the regular mayoral vote. Now you're telling me that we're going to have 2 votes where one party decides, and I would imagine if we can't get 3,000 out for the general election, I can only imagine we'll get 200 people deciding who's going to be the Democratic candidate or the Republican candidate for the mayoral race.
Well, let's back up for just a second and talk about what is the current format. And Joe, you've spoken a lot about this. It's an open field, right?
Yeah, and Michael Langford at City Council also gave a really good analysis of the system we have and the concerns that, as you stated, could happen. So as it stands right now, we have a nonpartisan race in which anybody can run. We don't have a primary. Which means John Smith and Joe Blow can put their names in and they can run. And you don't know anything about them other than who they are and what their platform is.
Because they don't run as a Republican or a Democrat.
They don't run in any party and they don't have to get through a primary. So to your point, Kevin, is that one, it's truly inclusive in that everybody has a chance. And also, and this is where I come down on it, by removing the letter from the candidate, you kind of force people that want to learn more about the issues that they actually learn about the issues. Because if you got somebody who's going to instinctively say, "Oh, they're Democrat, I ain't voting for them," or they're Republican, you kind of actually you miss the nuance, and also you do a great disservice to local politics, which still tends to be on a lot of things, despite the rhetoric from some people, it still tends to be pretty nonpartisan.
And we try to
we try to show that. Absolutely.
So let's talk about the last election, the 2023 election. In that race, there was 3 candidates. Jack Heath was one of them.
Yep.
But then he dropped out towards the end, and this is what you're referencing, and Megan Outen was inserted.
Yeah.
Randy Taylor was one of the candidates, and Jermichael Mitchell was the other one.
Who declared before everybody.
He declared on purpose. We declared in February of 2023.
Okay. And because Megan and Jermichael would be considered Democrats and Randy is a Republican, they feel like the Democrats in this area feel like that vote got split.
Yeah.
And it's more important for them to get someone from their party in than maybe the right candidate, but at the same time, they did have a lot of negative communication about Jermichael's candidacy last time, right?
Yeah. So I think what we witnessed before Megan got involved, we sat down with Shore Progressive, and I have all the notes, and we did a one-on-one interview, and they loved him before declaring Megan. And then once Megan got declared, it was just like Jermichael wasn't worthy anymore, right? And it just shows what the plan always was, right? And I think history is important. And to Joseph's point about the Democrats and people just voting for Democrats, voting for Republicans. I remember, I want to say it was 2016 county executive run where Jack Heath was an independent.
Oh, it was 2018, yeah.
2018, Jack Heath was an independent. It was Bob Culver, and the rumor was
Josh Hamilton was his name.
Josh Hamilton.
Yeah.
They
20-year-old kid.
Just say, hey, run as a Democrat.
Yep.
Because Bob knew that those votes would split. Like it would, if it was just Bob and Jack would have won.
Yeah.
But bringing that individual in, and I watched the form.
Oh, he was a total
awful.
plan.
And it was just people voted just because he had a D behind it.
Exactly.
You think that's a possibility in the 2026 county elections?
No.
Okay.
Personally, if a certain Democrats run it, I don't. No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Because we've heard that rumor.
I heard that. I just don't. I mean,
sure
we've had Democrats since then.
I'm sure all options are on the table for people that want to get reelected.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the same situation.
Yeah.
But as somebody who was in the room in the time when Megan was inserted, I could tell you that there were numerous points. And you got to remember, I mean, we have to talk about this with regard to Shore progress. It's Jared Scheiblein's operation, and he and Megan are very close, and they have a policy in which, if you're not sort of towing the line of their belief and their policy, you're kind of cast out. And I got to tell you, and again, I've said this, I'll say it again, I apologize to you and Jermichael for being in that room and seeing some of that and not really speaking up. And there were other people, too, who ended up pulling away from the campaign as it went on, especially after that incident when he was declared an illegitimate candidate. But one of the things that I remember distinctly, and people need to remember this, there was a fundraiser for Megan that the developers threw at Green Street Housing. And Jake Day and Jack Heath and all the establishment sort of leaders at a party got up there and said specifically that Jermichael was not good for the community. Now, I find that when you think about what people do...
Come to a Parks and Rec meeting at the end of September.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think when they mean community, they mean maybe certain developers.
Oh, no doubt.
And that's something to be wary of as we get into the next election, because they're already trying to figure out that plan of action. And I suspect part of what you're hearing is the impetus from those folks, because what they're concerned about is that even though Randy and Jermichael are very different in many ways, one's a Democrat, one's a Republican, I think they have a very similar approach to the idea of we shouldn't sell out the city assets and give everything to a bunch of downtown developers while we have all these issues. And as long as that remains the most likely matchup, I think they're going to try to rig it in some way. I mean,
not rig the election.
Not rig the election, but set
the result.
Set the table.
Yeah.
Set the table
I know what you mean.
that is most conducive to their desires.
So if they are successful in creating a closed primary, that would mean that prior to the 2027 open city mayor election, there would be a primary where only Republicans can vote for a Republican candidate and Democrats can only vote for a Democrat candidate. What process would have to happen between now and then to get that into place?
I understand it. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I just think it's a motion from city council to change the charter and to vote on it. It's nothing. Does
it have to pass 4 to 1?
Or is it 3 to 2?
My understanding is that when it's proposed and passed out of council, it only needs 3 votes to pass. The mayor can veto it, which I suspect he would, and they would have to find an override. So the real question is, let's be honest, would April Jackson and Sharon DeShiel be the 2 votes that would not override? That would help, that would sustain the mayor's veto. I suspect they would, because I think Ms. Jackson has kind of had the same criticisms that we've brought up about kind of how there's an attempt to sort of circumvent, I would say, the will of the people, because one of my big critiques of a closed primary, apart from that you get maybe the most extreme partisan people voting, is that, as you said, Kevin, you dilute, you filter a very, very narrow group of people. I mean, not everybody can vote in the middle of June or July in a primary when there's very little information. That kind of warps the people that actually are running. I mean, we saw that even with the governor's election and with all the other local elections when they bumped up the primary in 2022. I looked at the data. 9% of the electorate voted in that June primary.
And the hard thing there, I'm a Republican, and in Maryland, you almost don't get to have a hand in selecting the governor.
Yeah.
Because whoever wins the Democrat primary most of the time wins. Ehrlich there's been some exceptions. But what you really want is really a nonpartisan election. Let's let the best win out.
Yeah.
So talking about being the best, let's talk about how the baseball program that you're running on Wednesdays and Saturdays over at Billie Jean Jackson is could help some kids not just be their best baseball player, but maybe learn a little bit more about themselves.
Yeah, it's a cool program. We started in the spring. We did it for about 6 weeks, and it's the same in the fall. I think the goal, what's cool about it is, number one, you're learning the game of baseball. Number 2, it's free.
Okay.
Right? So
cost is right.
Cost is right, and we feed them afterwards.
Okay.
Right. So you're getting a group of 20 to 25 kids out from 6 to 7:30 on a Wednesday and 9 to 10:30 on a Saturday, where it's dinner time. They're probably hungry afterwards, but also they have the opportunity to learn the game. And what I tell the kids is like, look, you're not going to be a superstar just from 3 hours a week with me. Trust me, I don't know enough about the game. But there are certain fundamentals about the game that we can teach if you are interested in playing the game at full time. You can go in feeling more comfortable when Little League starts, right? How to field a ground ball, how to run the bases, the basic techniques of swinging a bat. And then you get to listen to me yell at you.
Which is great at 9 o'clock on a Saturday.
Oh, they love it, man. They're just like, I want to go home.
Well, feed me first, right?
Feed me first, right? So, but it's a cool program, and I don't want to. It's just not baseball. I think they have like basketball, lacrosse. They did a football program in the spring out there together. So, I think it's the way times are now, the economy is, anything you can do to provide a service that parents don't have to, rob Peter to pay Paul to make sure their son or daughter is happy. It's just a positive.
It's hard enough just for the time commitment.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't think that gets enough credit anymore.
Yeah, because people are working more and more.
Yeah, they are.
Yep.
I'm a Little League coach. I've been coaching sports for a long time. Joe coaches over in the Challenger League in Wycomico County. The time it takes to just commit as a parent to have the kids, especially if you have more than one.
Yeah, no doubt.
One of the cool things I think is, with this being at Billie Jean Jackson, there's a lot of folks who could even ride their bike to get there.
And I think that was the premises of having it there. And actually, introducing a different population, typically kids that look like me, to the game, because it's even percentage-wise Major League Baseball is worse now than when Jackie Robinson was playing.
I was just going to say, I just want to say, I'm very grateful that you're keeping baseball alive, but it is ironic that actually, among African American communities, interest in baseball seems to, at least proportionally, been going down. And again, the stats in the leagues, not just the major leagues, kind of show it.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, in the rural parts of the county, it's not growing either.
Yeah.
Coaching, when we get to the spring, and I'm talking 11 and 12-year-olds, 20 years ago, you're not still teaching the kids the rules of the game.
Right.
You don't ride down a road and see kids just playing baseball in their backyard anymore.
Right. Yeah.
But when you go to coach and you're having to actually teach the kids the rules at that point instead of the skills, then it's hard. It's much harder. I can't applaud you all enough for getting out there.
It's fun, man.
And doing it. The summer basketball program probably finished strong, I would say.
Yeah. And Joe Michael talks about that all the time, like the work he puts in, and it's just a dedication that I don't. When you mention like he's not good for the community, man, I tell you what, I will take that guy over anybody, like, for all the work, before. What people don't realize, I remember meeting Joe Michael. He was meeting with getting Lieutenant Governor Rutherford, getting awards from him before anybody really started talking about it. So the work that he does, man, out there, especially with basketball and just the other work, it's pretty cool.
It's easy to talk about it. Joe gets out there and coaches. I see it with some of the volunteers we have with the program I help run. Getting anybody out there who's willing to be boots on the ground.
Yeah, boots on the ground.
Well,
I think
it's hard, and you got to understand to your point, athletics in general the landscape has changed because of AAU, travel ball, travel soccer. My son does it. It's just different.
Yeah.
And ultimately, me and my neighbor, Kevin Slade, we joke around like, you think this guy's going to make the team? And he looks at me, he said, if he can write that check, he's going to be on the team. And it gets away from the fundamentals of teaching. Yeah.
And we had a conversation about that not too long ago, because every now and then I, go up to the Henry Parker Field complex, just play with my son on the fields. And, it's weird because I come from sort of the urban version of what you guys are talking about with the rural area. Like, kids always would play baseball in the neighborhood growing up. Just an organic thing. And I part of me really resents the formalization, the travel ball. There's a lot of classism involved. Because you said it's like,
if you can't afford it,
what happened to just being a game?
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Well, thanks for coming in and talking to us about elections and also baseball too. Anytime to do that,
awesome,
I'd love to.
Could you give a reminder about when the baseball?
Well, it's Wednesday, Saturday, and we run all the way through October 11th. And I believe you can still sign up. So just bring your kid out there, maybe a little bit before 6. Get them signed up, and we'll get them going.
Billie Jean Jackson.
Billie Jean
Both
Jackson.
Wednesday and Saturday.
Wednesday
Billie Jean
and Saturday. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for
No
coming.
problem. Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. Thanks for rejoining us, Mr. Jim Atkins.
Yes.
Dr. Jovanosa, thanks for sticking around.
Always.
So what do you think about the baseball program?
It's good. It's good. These kids need something to do to get them outside, away from videos and everything else, and to have people who are really interested in them and can teach them the fundamentals, so then they can make the decision whether or not it's something they want to continue to do as they get older.
Yeah. Baseball, I think, can teach you a lot of
Yes.
life lessons.
Yes, it's a team game. You've got to play as a team.
Yeah. And it's great to see that he's coming to meet the kids where they're at versus asking them to go
Yes.
to travel, as
Yeah.
they say.
I think
So-
I'm sorry, but the accessibility of what they're doing, I think, is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I'm sure the parents really appreciate that, because that's who it falls on to get them to practice.
Yeah.
The parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
So accessibility, talk about primaries and closed primaries. Joe,
Good segue.
well, you got to work with what you got, right?
Teamwork.
So the idea with closed primaries, and I found this interesting as I've gotten to know a lot about the city council politics, city mayor politics from you the last couple of years. The openness of the election allowed the most people to participate without titles.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. As good as I think it is to keep the current system we have and actually improve upon it, even in this environment, the city has struggled to get people to participate in the electoral process. I believe our last election for mayor, I believe the voter turnout rate was, I think, 16.9%.
Yeah.
I mean, so as Kevin had said, about 3,000 people in a city of more than 30,000 showed up. So if you're going to create a closed primary system, as I said, you're not just going to get the more extreme candidates or maybe the candidates that are backed by the party people with the money, but you're just going to get fewer people to participate in the process.
So what creates the lack of participation? Is it the time of year that the election is in? Is it that it is a staggered election? Because they certainly would have more participation if the city elections were held the same time the county elections were.
Yeah.
When people are out voting, they're going to vote for everything at one time. So what is the...
That's a great question, Jim. I think there's a few things. One is the fact that we live in a city in Salisbury where 76% of the population are renters. That often means you have more transient people. You know, I can remember when I was in grad school in Athens, Ohio, and my wife and I were renting as poor grad students. We didn't follow local city politics much because we were involved in our own lives. So I think that's an element of it. There's a lot of people in poverty. Typically, people that are in poverty that are struggling to make ends meet are not going to get into the minutia of city life, even though they get most affected by it. It's kind of one of the great tragedies of this whole system that we're in.
Yeah, and they're going to see it with the water bill.
Exactly.
When it goes up, they're going to see it.
Yeah. And then the third thing, I think, is that just a lot of people have become turned off by politics in general. I think voting trends across the country and across the state, certainly the county, mirror that. And when you have candidates who also just don't speak to people, who don't excite them. I mean, I think it's interesting that even though we had a very low turnout election last time for mayor, Jermichael Mitchell got a pretty sizable chunk of the population of people who did not typically vote by being known in the community, by meeting them where they're at, and by doing a kind of grassroots campaign. And again, even though it didn't bring in a lot of people, you could see that candidates matter, their message matters, and ultimately, do they do things that local people respond to?
Michael Langford talked about it, project-based versus what
Projects, yeah. I think that's, and I get, he's so great and so articulate when he kind of frames it, and I love that concept of, if I'm running for office, these are the projects I want to work on. Forget my job or my party or anything else. This is what I'm intending to do. Are you on board or not?
I want to touch on something else you brought up with Kevin, and you just talked about it earlier. on the extremes. You know, in this area now, we have the Democratic Party, but we also have Shore Progress. We have the Republican Party, but we also have the Delmarva Conservative Movement. Is it fair to say that those two groups are the far left and the far right of the parties that they're supposed to represent, or is it a different version altogether?
You know, I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think on at face value they represent, or I think they would say they represent the base of their parties. On the other hand, they're also plugged into the establishment forces that people beyond just the fringe support. Meaning, Sure Progress and the Delmarva Conservative movement can both sort of say that they're like grassroots organizations that speak for the real voter of their group, but they're actually, and here's the big secret, they're backed by the same people, the developers, the real estate folk,
People in Annapolis.
people in
DC.
Annapolis. I mean, like this is as establishment as it gets, unfortunately. And you can have all the rhetoric and all the candidates you want who say otherwise, but we could find out the campaign finance reports pretty easy. And frankly, don't take my word for it. Look at their economic policies. You tell me. I would love to know, what is the difference between a candidate backed by Sure Progress and a candidate backed by Delmarva Conservative Movement? If you could show me substantial economic differences.
I think they probably changed their tie.
They might.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Well, that's probably one of the driving forces. I mean, when you look around the country, and Maryland is no different, except they don't recognize independents in primaries, but you've got a lot of people going to the independent party.
It's the fastest growing segment of the voter base.
Exactly, because they're tired of the extreme on the left and they're tired of the extreme on the right. They want a nice balanced approach, and you're seeing that with independent people.
Maybe instead of going to closed primaries for the mayoral elections, maybe we should be going to open primaries for the state elections.
Yeah.
Not only that, and I've brought this up before, if the city is going to change anything and make it more dynamic and interesting, I'm a big supporter of ranked choice voting.
Yes.
If I've got
Pick
five
the top two and
pick
then
the
they
top-
go.
yeah, like if you've got several candidates and you do think, well, he's great and she's also great, and I just don't want to go all the way in. And a lot of states, whether they're left or right leaning, have done it. Alaska has ranked choice voting now. I believe Vermont has it.
Yeah.
New York,
Maine.
New York
City.
now?
New York City has it. Cities, municipalities have begun to do it, and they have done it for a while. It's interesting that a city like Salisbury, which kind of claims it's sort of forward thinking, doesn't do that.
Well, we're trying to try to regress into something else.
Yeah, that's the irony. You're actually kind of going back into something that I think we all could sort of agree, regardless of your party, like doesn't really make much sense for the community.
Well, thank you both. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this episode of Open Agenda. We'll be back later this week with another new episode. I can clean that up later.
I was going to say, that was the one.